When World War I ended in 1918, vast amounts of enemy weapons and equipment were turned over to the Entente powers to dispose of. The German army was progressively reduced in size by demobilization of its members, and that army's huge stores of weapons and personal equipment largely became the property of the Entente powers, as per the terms of agreements and treaties with the post-imperial German government. So on top of what the Entente powers had physically captured and battled with Germany, much of it being stored in special collections of enemy war material, from January 1920 Germany was given just 2 months to hand over almost all of her war material, including rifles, grenades, machine guns, artillery and shells, as well as helmets, uniforms, gas masks, binoculars and so on, and much of this equipment was either sold or destroyed. Helmets are the focus of this program, specifically German helmets. The Germans were the first combatant power in the Great War to develop a steel helmet, but not the first to issue one to their troops, that being the French with the Adrien helmet. The need for steel helmets came about because of trench warfare and the increasingly large amount of head injuries caused to soldiers by shrapnel, stones and mud being flung around during artillery bombardments. Soldiers being mostly hit in the heads as they stood in trenches. All of the major combatants in World War I quickly developed and brought into service steel helmets. The resulting German World War I helmet was the Model 1916, named after the year of its institution, followed by slightly altered versions in 1917 and 18, but the basic design remained. German helmets were the most expensive World War I helmets, made from a very hard nickel steel. More than 7 million German helmets of the M16 design or its variants were made up to 1918, meaning that millions and millions were handed over to the victorious Entente powers, who had absolutely no use for them. Vast numbers were simply scrapped and the metal used to make other things. But in one seemingly innovative and perhaps bizarre use, tens of thousands of German helmets were used to help build a road in England. The town of Croydon, now a London borough in the south of the capital, was home to Britain's first commercial airport, which opened in 1920, when the town was still part of the county of Surrey. During World War I, Croydon Aerodrome had been a home defence airfield of the Royal Flying Corps and later the early Royal Air Force, where fighters attempted to protect London from Zeppelins and later the German Gotha bomber raids. The area around the airport grew into factories and industrial concerns. Until after World War I, it was decided to construct Britain's first bypass road, improving and redirecting the route north to south of Whaddon Marsh Lane, Whaddon Court Road and Cold Harbour Lane, the new road to be called Purley Way. Within Croydon were several military installations and depots, including the captured enemy gun park, a huge assemblage of German artillery weapons stored outside, with some eventually being sent on to Australia and New Zealand to become public monuments around war memorials, and some others to perform the same tasks in the UK. As we see here today, there are many guns still on display. However, most were destined to end their days as scrap. See the link in the end screen to my video about the remaining World War I trophy guns on display in the UK today. Also stored at the gun park was a vast number of German helmets awaiting destruction. The helmets were steel shells, already stripped of their leather liners and chin straps. Someone decided that the foundations of the new Purley Way required metal to be mixed in with the road structure to increase its durability and strength, and a deal was evidently made to purchase vast stores of war surplus German helmets to be put into the foundations of the road. Footage exists of an early Caterpillar tractor towing a line of German Krupp field guns over piles of German helmets in Croydon, apparently to flatten them. But judging by the background of rows of parked German field guns, it looks as though we're not seeing the actual construction of the road. I think it likely that the helmets here are at the captured gun park, and the scene was staged for the newsreel camera, as driving heavy vehicles over helmets piled on muddy ground will only succeed in pushing the strong and heavy helmets into the ground and not in flattening them. But the jolly japes for the camera does give a small impression of just how many German helmets were used to strengthen the footings of Purley Way. Presumably each helmet was later flattened in some kind of press, and the whole lot added to the foundations of the road and then covered over with concrete. But I'm no civil engineer, so perhaps they did actually lay piles of intact German helmets on the road surface and drove them in using tractors before building up the road layer by layer above. I'd be interested in some expert opinions, as I think placing whole German helmets into the foundations would have caused subsidence, as the helmets would have produced air pockets that would have led to collapse, as they were deteriorated underground and placed under such pressure from above. Perhaps several infantry divisions' worth of intact German World War I helmets still lie beneath Purley Way today, drivers thundering over it, blissfully unaware of the World War I artifacts beneath their wheels. Begun in December 1919, Purley Way was completed in 1925 and remains a major Croydon thoroughfare today. So the next time you see any roadworks taking place on Purley Way, have a look in the hole. Perhaps you might see some rusty German helmets. Many thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share, and also visit my audiobook channel, War Stories with Mark Felton. You can also help support both of my channels at PayPal and Patreon. Details in the description box below.